Okay, so Phil, a new Terminator movie just came out, didn't it?
It did indeed.
Have you seen any of the others?
Well, it's funny you should mention that.
Because I know you did, because you tweeted about it.
If you follow our amazing podcast Twitter account at CynOpt Podcast, I did the second in an event I call a rewatch. I think I'm very bold in this idea. So back when we did we reviewed Dark Phoenix back last season, I'd watched through all the relevant X-Men films.
Mm-hmm.
And then for this, I did Phil's Terminator rewatch.
Oh, I thought you said you were staying in a place called Atora Watch, and it was your term in Atora Watch.
You tried that joke on Twitter as well. It also didn't work on there.
I will try, damn it.
Well, the thing is, I say rewatch. I'd only actually seen the first two films before because I'd heard mixed things about the others. And can we just agree the first two are the best two?
Oh, I mean, definitely. I mean, the second one is the best.
Yes. I think, yeah.
And then the first one's a pretty cool, like, cat and mouse setup movie.
I think what I said on Twitter was the first one's a very good movie that probably came about because James Cameron thought his friend's mum was hot.
That works.
No, but those two films are kind of like a classic duo, aren't they, really?
Yeah.
So going through the rest of them, maybe it's just because I watched them all in quite quick succession,
mm-hmm.
But the third one, apart from right at the very end, is a bit boring.
Yeah, and cheesy. Very, very cheesy.
Because I'm going to say that I don't think any of the Terminator films, I wouldn't call any of them bad, but I would call them... The worst I would say is that they are boring or they're a bit dull.
Yes.
You can argue that actually boring is worse than bad.
Uh-huh.
Because, for example, I could go... Like, a bad film you might rewatch just to make fun of it, whereas a boring film you would never look at again.
Yeah. So which of these would you say is boring that you'd never rewatch again?
To be honest, I thought because the thing is, because we usually end reviews with a ranking of the series, I was having real trouble with which order I'd put the number 3, Salvation, and Genesis in.
Yeah. I mean, they're all bad for different reasons.
Yeah, because number 3 is boring.
Yeah, and
Salvation is generic and a bit.
Salvation,
dull.
I'd actually put as probably, and I'm going to get comments for this, but I'd actually put as the strongest of the sequels, if you can call it that.
See, I'm torn between. I think I'd put 3. Just talking about the 5 films, we'll get onto Dark Fate in a second, but just talking about the 5 films, I'd probably put number 3 at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I get into real trouble, because Genesis is just, from the very get-go, is just balls to the wall insane.
Yeah, which is fun. It's quite fun.
And that's the thing, I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
It made 0 sense.
Yeah.
But it seemed like the cast were all having a good time.
Yeah. And
as a result, I had a good time.
Yeah, the recreation of previous films and stuff I thought was pretty neat.
I'm always a fan of that.
The ending was really fun. This is spoilers for all of them, by the way. The ending of Genesis, I was a bit sore on because I actually kind of wanted to see, Emilia Clarke and Pops and those characters on their next adventure kind of thing. But this is the fucking frustrating thing about being a fan of this franchise, is they just give you characters and then just wipe them off the face of the planet for the next film, because none of these films line up in the continuity. Like, worse than X-Men. Like, it's frustrating as hell.
You'd think the 6th Terminator film, which just got released, you'd think it's the end of the second trilogy. You couldn't be more wrong.
Yes. I mean, there's that film, there's the films, and then there's, like, the Sarah Connor Chronicles as well, which is also set on a completely different continuity, which was just abruptly cut off at the end. It's a very frustrating thing to be a fan of. Like, take your Star Wars, take your Alien, take your X-Men. There is nothing more frustrating than being a Terminator fan. It's bloody annoying. But I'd say Salvation I'd probably put higher towards the top because it's the only one that's a little bit different.
I give it points for being different.
Yeah. It's a logical... I think it's a logical step to take a sequel because Terminator 2... Like the other... Like Genesis and... We'll talk about it a bit later, but Genesis and Dark Fate and 3 all pretty much take the same plot elements from Terminator 2.
Yeah, they follow what I refer to as like the Terminator formula.
Yes, exactly. And you've got Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's now a good guy. Spoilers, I guess, for Dark Fate as well, but we'll get to that in a bit. You know he's going to be the good guy. He's in the trailer.
Yeah.
It's just the same formula. Whereas I thought Salvation. Secondly, I think Salvation's got the best special effects of any of them. I saw what you put about the colour palette. I saw you mention on Twitter. I agree, is pretty dull.
Yeah, that probably was like the most disappointing thing about it. Is that, but then that was a time in both film and games where that was the colour palette of seemingly every dark and gritty in quote marks film or game.
Desaturated and apocalyptic. Yeah.
Yeah, and whilst I thought Salvation was good and different from the other Terminator films, it almost strayed into being too much of a generic post-apocalypse film.
Yeah.
So that's why I would probably put, even though arguably it is, in terms of narrative, it's probably one of the worst ones, I'd probably put Genesis above Salvation just because it's vibrant, it's fun, it doesn't know what it's doing, you don't know what it's doing, who cares?
Yeah, whereas Salvation was the opposite of that. I thought the production design of Salvation was really good because they sort of simplified it. I think that's why it works so well for me, is because after they kind of complicated the TX in Terminator 3, and there's only so far you can push it. Like, you've got liquid metal, and then you've got liquid metal with a solid exoskeleton, and...
The problem, I think, is they've never been able to think what is the next big evolution of the Terminator after they did liquid metal.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's why
nothing is quite as good.
That's why I actually dig the designs in Salvation as well, because you've got the T600, which is like the predecessor to the T800, so it's just like this ugly, chunky thing with rubber skin over its head, and it looks horrific, but in some ways that's scarier for me than... So if you've seen the trailers for Dark Fate, you'll know that the sort of the gimmick of this one is that it can split itself into two Terminators, and it's just not... But it doesn't look scary enough to me. I think there's nothing scarier than the early sort of T800s and T600s, because it's just like, it's so brutal. It doesn't even try to kind of fit into... I mean, it tries to fit into like reconnaissance, and it's trying to sort of blend in with humans and stuff, but it just doesn't, and that's what gives it a bit of scariness. Whereas, a little bit of a spoiler for the new one, but the new Terminator is very polite when he's in human form, isn't he? He talks to people with a little bit of a smile and a bit of a nod and a wink, doesn't he?
Yeah, and also, like, we'll get onto it when we talk about the film properly.
Yeah.
But my thing about the splitting into two is whether it breaks the Terminator's own kind of internal rules. Because the thing about the liquid metal ones is they always had the same total mass.
Yes. Yeah, it could only replicate things of a similar size.
So when you've got it splitting into two, obviously they make one of them look a bit thin, a bit hollow.
He's got a little chunk in his head, hasn't he?
But aside from that, anyway, shall we
talk about Dark Fate?
Shall we talk about the film that we've said we're going to talk about?
Yeah, it's a stupid name, isn't it? Dark Fate.
Yeah, well, this is coming off the back of a film called Genesis, and Genesis is spelt wrong.
Genesis.
So let's not get into the stupid subtitle game now.
Well, they should have called it No Fate. If they're gonna link it so closely to Terminator 2, why don't they just call it No Fate?
Or call it Terminator 3 Judgment Day 2.
Yeah. So we'll start. We'll try our best to start with no spoilers, but how much can we say about this film without spoiling?
If you look in the show notes or description or whatever, I'll try and put a timestamp of when we go into full blown spoiler territory.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you really care, don't listen to this at all, because we'll have to mention a few things. But at this point, Does it even matter if you spoil it, Phil? Because, like, they're just going to reboot it again in 5 years, aren't they?
Well, we'll try anything that is outside of what you'd expect from a regular Terminator film. We will try and keep for the spoiler section. But well, let's start with just a brief spoiler-free synopsis. The film is based around the Terminator thing of one person comes back in time to kill, one person comes back in time to protect. Hijinks ensue.
Yes, that's basically
the
it.
big
But
difference.
Sarah Connor's back this time.
Yeah, the big difference is that Sarah Connor is back.
Yeah.
This is following on from Terminator 2, where they stopped Judgment Day, and it's actually, well, I thought it was very a bit strained but very necessary how the film basically starts off with saying, look, it takes place in the present day again now.
Yes.
It's now 2019.
Yes.
And obviously Judgment Day didn't happen because it hasn't happened in the real world.
No. But this film is basically Terminator 2. As a bit of a plot summary, this film is basically the same.
It follows all the regular plot beats of a Terminator film up until the conclusion, final battle.
Yeah, I think a good way of summarising it would be, if you're not bored of, like, Force Awakenings of movies, then you'll enjoy this. But it's basically it's a Force Awakening.
I think it was perfectly fine. Yeah, like I wasn't bored, but I could guess what was going to happen.
It's interesting because I actually was pretty bored throughout this one, because it's just like every inverted commas twist. It's coming from a mile off.
None of the twists actually surprised.
Yeah,
but it was there's an interesting absence of the big evil corporate entity part of it.
Right.
I'd say compared to previous films.
Yeah.
Which actually makes it on a smaller, I want to say more personal scale, akin to the first Terminator rather than Terminator 2. But a lot of its beats and a lot of the stuff that a lot of the stuff that you'll recognise is from Terminator 2.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. But the CGI for the most part's decent. Again, I don't really like when you see the what's the new one now? The Rev 9.
Yes.
The Rev, when you see the Rev 9 Terminator, which is the villain, jumping around and stuff, it looks a bit rubbery and a bit weightless. Whereas the actual morphing effect, I think, is very successful.
Yes, I was going to say, well, it looks like a film made in the current era, I guess. It looks very good.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you'll tell by all the YouTube videos and press interviews and all that, obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger is back.
Uh-huh. I think the actual
he gets given
performances...
a fun role.
Yeah, I think the performances are actually very good in this film. I really like Mackenzie Davis. She stood out in Blade Runner 2049 for me, so it's good to see her in a primary role in this. Linda Hamilton's excellent as ever. She should be in more things.
And I
think this is it's unfair to this film coming out now. It's a bit unfortunate in the fact that, like, I feel like I could copy and paste reviews and just apply it to this, because it's so middling.
Yeah. Although one of the things I've always kind of respected the Terminator series for is how it doesn't glorify these experiences as turning these people into heroes.
Yeah.
Like, Sarah Connor is a bit of a messed up human being.
Yeah, very.
And she's wanted in several states. She's a bit nuts.
Yeah.
And I thought, actually, that's very respectable, because there's a bit of a habit with these films that take place 30 years later of, like, oh, the hero from the first one's shown up and look how good and brave they are. Obviously, The Last Jedi did similar to this. Obviously, Luke Skywalker wasn't keeping his cell phone in a bag of crisps, but it was a similar thing. And I do respect that where a film tries to be like, actually, it doesn't always go that way.
Yeah.
You don't stay your best self forever.
No, you don't. And yeah, you turn into a cranky older person. But again, like that role really suit. And yeah, the same thing I said about Mark Hamill, I'll say about Linda Hamilton. So she should be in more things as new roles and stuff, because I haven't seen her enough recently, and she's really good in this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought the soundtrack was okay. You got a few throwbacks to obviously like the Brad Fiedel score from Terminator 2, and you get the da 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 as always.
Yeah.
I don't really have a lot to say about this movie.
I was going to say let's say spoilers from now.
Quick ranking.
What, like a score and where we put it in the series?
Let's just do where we put it in the series. Scores are irrelevant at this point, aren't they?
Yes. I would put it above number 3.
The score is irrelevant because these films...
I'd struggle to put it any higher.
These films are basically just like train announcements at this point, in that they just kind of happen, and I guess they're okay.
If you want to go and see a Terminator film, go see it. If you want to go see a decent action film, go see it.
Yeah.
It's there is Arnie was apparently on the Graham Norton show, where he said he wasn't going to do it unless the script was great. It's like, all right, it's a Terminator film.
By script he means paycheck.
Yeah.
I'd probably put this at the bottom, not because of the... Okay, if I'm taking it out of context, it's probably somewhere near the middle, but if I'm taking it as the context that it's in, and I'm bored of Terminator reboots, which just wipe out previous continuity of previous movies, then it's going towards the bottom, because it's one of the least necessary films I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, and the thing is, it was good, but didn't have the new ideas that Salvation had.
It wasn't as fun as Genesis.
Yeah.
I had a way better time in Genesis, even though it was dumb.
Even though this film probably made more sense.
Yeah.
Well, even though this film probably made more sense. Yeah, and I guess now we'll go on to spoilers, but to be honest, I reckon spoilers only takes about 60 seconds.
Yeah.
So if you don't want spoilers, you really, really don't, we'll skip forward about 3 minutes to the end. We're going to go into spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
John Connor gets shot, doesn't he?
John Connor gets shot right at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, in pretty not great de-aging, right?
Yes. I wasn't even sure that was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No, it didn't look like him at all. Yeah.
I thought that was a different Terminator.
I guess, like, Sarah Connor looked okay. That de-aging, yeah. And you get the gist of who's who, because it's set directly after Terminator 2, so you can tell from the hair and stuff who's who, but it's not great.
But I like how the intro basically makes the case is that actually the Terminator had done this on several occasions, but they keep on fart-arsing around when it's the heroes.
Yeah.
But this one just walked in, shot and walked out, and that was about it.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense, the fact that they didn't just send one as well back in the day.
Yeah.
So I think during Terminator 2, even though you only see the T-1000 report appear, this is retconning that so that a T-1000 and a T-800 was sent back.
Yeah.
And you know what, there could be loads out there, so who knows?
Yeah, that's the thing with time travel stories, I guess.
Yeah. Wouldn't you rather see, rather than this sort of Terminator 2, Terminator 3, like, derivative, wouldn't you rather see it go back a bit further? And try and wipe out the lineage of John Connor, and I just want
like
something else.
a Terminator film like set in World War II.
Yeah, or why don't you just get the Stranger Thing guys to do like an 80s thing? Because you don't watch Stranger Things, do you? But season 3 there was like a very Terminator-esque character, also Russian as it happens. Like we were talking about the Call of Duty story earlier. That won't make any sense if you're just listening to the discussion. But anyway, there's this T-800 style character in season 3, and it's deliberately a throwback, but like the writers are so good at getting the setting and the theme and the style of the 80s that I'd actually much rather see something from them. I don't know, go back to the 70s, go back to the 60s, wipe out John Connor's hippie granddad. I don't know, just do something else.
I mean, that could be quite it'd probably be a spin-off, but it'd be quite funny, wouldn't it?
Yeah, right.
Like Terminator Generations, and it's a short limited run TV series about Terminators versus the different generations of the Connors.
Yeah.
Because now they see Sarah Connor as a threat, they're going back to stop Sarah Connor from being born.
Yeah.
But then, Peter Connor wins, so Peter Connor's seen as a threat, so they send someone back to kill, like, Lilith Connor.
Yeah.
I think that would be, like, quite, as a laid-back kind of fun, short series. That'd be good.
Yeah.
The other thing that's treated as a big twist is that the person they're saving isn't the mother of the rebellion.
I mean,
she
obviously.
is the leader.
I was quite surprised Mackenzie Davis didn't correct Sarah Connor at the time. When they're sat on that train and Sarah Connor turns to her and goes like, "Oh, yeah, you're only important because of your womb or whatever." I was like, okay, now Mackenzie Davis is going to turn to her and say, "That's not true. She's the leader of the resistance." And I was like, "Oh, she didn't say it, but it's going to come out later." And sure enough, it did just come out later. And I was like, "Oh, sorry, was that a twist?"
Yeah, it gets treated like a twist, but there's two main giveaways. One is that obviously there's no mention of the... Because usually they're like, oh, we need... If the father is not the time traveller, there's usually a mention of protecting the father.
Yeah.
And two, when you just listen to the year that everything takes place, in 2040, you're like...
It's
that's probably just her then, isn't it?
Yeah. Not a twist.
Yeah. Not a twist at all, but it technically falls under spoiler territory.
And the other twist is, if you can call it the twist again, is that Arnold Schwarzenegger dies for the fifth time.
Yeah.
I saw a review, I can't remember, I think it was on The Independent or something, I'm not sure, but they said, like, in relation to this and The Force Awakens, is that the sort of, the father figure death isn't as impactful because that was the first time Han Solo died, whereas we've seen Arnold's good guy Terminator die in pretty much every movie.
Yeah.
And so it's just I feel zero connection at all to that, because I mean at the end of Genesis he lived, so at least that was a bit different. But,
and they try to make it more of a thing by saying, oh, he's got like a wife and adopted child now.
Yeah.
But
we see them for about 30 seconds as well, so it's not a lot of impact. Also a bit I just don't really get, because in Terminator 2 they remove the thing that stops them sort of self-learning in the CPU, whereas this one was able to just do that without having that removed, which was a kind of weird plot hole. Like, unless they had that bit removed in the CPU, I don't see why a T-800 would go and start a family and have a non-sexual relationship with a human.
Yeah, I think it was just to be like, give Arnie something interesting to do.
And they wanted the bit where he talks about curtains or whatever.
Drapes.
Yeah.
To be fair, it was a funny bit, but it was like a lot of setup for just like Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about curtains.
Yeah. I genuinely think that might have been the whole reason.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a movie and it's alright.
Go see it if we've made it sound like an interesting prospect. Go see it.
I don't think we have.
Or go see it anyway and tell us we're wrong.
Yeah, if you really love it, if you think it's a real return to form, if you think James Cameron's return as a producer in brackets has really made a difference, then let us know. Do you see all those trailers where it goes James Cameron returns and then it'll cut to another scene, then it'll cut back to text as a producer.
But then I guess until the next film comes out, at which, when the next film comes out, obviously we'll be back.
Hey, you said the thing. I kind of wish they didn't say the thing. I'm bored of it.
Yeah.
I'm bored of these films.
Hi, this is Phil, one of the co-hosts of the podcast and editor of this video. The regular podcast also covers the film, TV and gaming news of the week, and then it goes on to a discussion like this. If you enjoyed the discussion, let us know. If you like Dark Fate, let us know. If you didn't, but for different reasons, well, let us know. We're going to be doing videos like this every week, so if you want to keep on seeing these sort of lightly edited discussion videos, subscribe to this channel. We've also got some other stuff in the works, so stick around. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.